Hello, everyone. Sit back and relax. It's going to be interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting stuff. Let's go. I sat at the kitchen table, nursing my coffee as the morning sun poured through the window. Across from me, Lisa flipped through the local paper, absent-mindedly stirring her tea. To my right, Jessica was glued to her phone, her expression the same indifferent mask she always wore. The only sounds in the room were the occasional rustling of newspaper pages and the quiet clink of utensils against ceramic. 5 years of marriage, and our mornings had settled into a routine, comfortable yet delicate, like something that could crack at the slightest pressure. Lisa had been through hell before we met. Her marriage to David had been a disaster, ending in chaos when he was finally arrested after one of his drunken rages turned violent. He left behind scars, some visible, others buried deep. She rarely talked about him, but whenever his name surfaced, the tension in her voice spoke volumes. I came into her life not long after that chapter closed. We met at a dinner party neither of us really wanted to attend, introduced by mutual friends who swore we'd hit it off. And somehow we did. Maybe it was the way she laughed, how it made the whole room feel lighter, or the way she listened, really listened, when I spoke. A year of dating later, we tied the knot. Jessica, now 18, was part of the deal. I knew from the start that stepping into the role of a stepfather wouldn't be easy, especially with a girl as guarded as she was. She was always polite, but there was a wall between us I could never seem to climb. I never pushed. I wasn't her father, and I never tried to be. I did my best to be there, to care for them, to carve out a place in their lives that felt natural. If she only ever saw me as her mom's husband, well, I'd made peace with that. But for months now, Lisa hasn't felt like the same woman I married. The warmth that once defined our relationship has faded, replaced by a growing distance. Small things have stacked up, less conversation, almost no intimacy, and her constant excuse of being too tired for anything. And then there's her phone, always in her hand, always demanding her attention. The way she scrambles to put it down the moment I walk into the room hasn't gone unnoticed. None of it has. I'm not a fool. These are warning signs, bright, glaring red flags. At first, I tried to ignore them, chalking up to stress, maybe something I'd done or failed to do. But as weeks turned into months, that nagging suspicion in the back of my mind refused to quiet down. So, I did what I had to do. I hired a private investigator. $2,000 later, I had my answer. A good PI doesn't come cheap, but the truth? That's worth every penny. Lisa had been seeing David, her ex-husband, the same man who nearly destroyed her, the one I thought she had buried in the past for good. And today, I know exactly what she's about to do. Like clockwork, it began. Lisa folded the paper neatly, letting her fingers linger on its edges, as if searching for courage in the creases. She looked at me, lips pressed into a thin line, then finally spoke. "Matt, I have something to tell you," she said, her voice quieter than usual. I set my coffee down slowly, meeting her gaze. "Go ahead." I replied, my tone calm, almost inviting. She hesitated, her fingers twisting at the corner of the tablecloth. "I'll be gone for a month," she finally said, the words dropping into the silence like a stone into water. I didn't react, just leaned forward slightly. "Okay," I said simply. Her shoulders tensed. She swallowed hard, as if preparing for a fight. "I mean, I'll be staying with David," she clarified, her voice gaining strength. "It's his birthday month, and I want to make it special for him." I leaned back in my chair, letting her words settle in my mind. My face didn't change, but a slow heat crept through my chest. I forced myself to stay composed. "So," I said, my voice low and measured, "what exactly will you be doing there? Cleaning his house? Cooking his meals? Sleeping with him? Or did he just decide hiring a hooker was too expensive and my legally wedded wife volunteer for the role?" I took a sip of my coffee, keeping my emotions in check. Her eyes flared wide with anger. "What the hell are you talking about? I am not a hooker or a maid," she snapped. "I'll be there as his wife." I set my cup down with deliberate slowness. "But you're married to me," I reminded her, my voice steady. Wouldn't doing whatever you plan on doing with him be considered cheating? She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. Instead, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "No, because I told you." I nodded slowly, the absurdity of her reasoning sinking in like a weight. "All right," I said, my voice eerily calm. "And what exactly do you expect me to do? Just sit here for a month while my wife plays house with another man?" Her frustration finally boiled over. Her voice carried a note of exasperation. "Oh, come on, Matt. I have certain desires I need to fulfill, and only David can do that for me." I fired back without hesitation. "You mean the kind where he ties you to a bed and whips you? Are those the desires you're talking about?" I knew exactly what she meant. I had seen the messages, the videos. The images were burned into my mind, things I could never erase. But I kept my expression neutral, even as anger churned beneath the surface. Looking her dead in the eye, I asked, "So, you have desires. What about mine? Do they not matter?" She threw her hands up in frustration. "Fine, do whatever you want. But once I'm back, you'll go right back to being my faithful husband." I leaned forward, my tone cold and deliberate. "And what if my desires aren't satisfied in 30 days? What if I find something better? Someone better? What then? Would that be fine with you?" Her face twisted in irritation. But before she could respond, I turned to Jessica, who had been silently observing the entire exchange. "What do you think, Jessica? Should your mother throw away her marriage for a month with another man?" She smirked, her tone laced with defiance. "She has her own needs and desires. You don't own her. She's free to do whatever she wants." The arrogance in her words hit me like a slap. She wasn't just supporting Lisa. She was enjoying this, rubbing it in. She wasn't a neutral bystander. She was part of it, and I knew the whole truth. Jessica would be going to David's house, too. The thought twisted something deep in my gut, but I held my composure. I raised both hands, a gesture of surrender. "Since both of you are so determined, I won't stand in your way." Lisa's lips curled into a smug smile, but I wasn't done. However, I continued, keeping my voice even. "I want you to sign a document stating that for the next 30 days, we will be officially and legally separated. I won't be responsible for you or Jessica financially, and I'll be free to do whatever I please." Lisa narrowed her eyes. "How does that work?" I leaned back, keeping my tone calm. "I'll call my lawyer. He'll draft the papers. And tomorrow we'll make it official in court. Simple." I let my words hang in the air before adding, with a touch of sarcasm, "I'm just making things easier for you. Go be with whoever you want for the next 30 days, and it won't even be considered cheating. And in return, I get to take care of my own desires, with nothing holding me back." Her eyes flickered with suspicion. "Am I missing something here? Why are you doing this?" I rose from my seat, looking down at her with certainty. "Because, Lisa, your words made it clear. You were never going to stop. So, there's no reason for me to stop you. And honestly, I might as well use this time to enjoy myself too." Jessica grinned smugly. "Mom, it's a good deal. I didn't know Matt could be this supportive." I turned to her, matching her arrogance with a smirk. "Oh, you have no idea." Without another word, I walked out of the room, already dialing my lawyer. I kept it simple. Do it. By the afternoon, my lawyer was sitting across from Lisa, in our living room, papers neatly laid out in front of her. She didn't even read them, just picked up the pen and signed with a flourish, confidence radiating from her like a victory lap. I leaned back, watching her. When she was done, I allowed the smallest smile to cross my lips. "It's done. By tomorrow, it'll be official." That evening, I told Lisa I was going out for a drink. I didn't bother explaining or making excuses. I just left. I wasn't drunk when I returned hours later, but I made sure to come back late enough to avoid any interaction with her. The next morning, we stood in the courtroom, Lisa beside me, her confidence unshaken. The judge looked over the document, his expression neutral. "Mrs. Lisa Turner, did you have your attorney review this document?" he asked, glancing up from the papers. "For the next 30 days, your husband will not be financially responsible for you or your daughter. and he is free to do as he pleases. Are you certain about this?" Without hesitation, she nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge simply shrugged. "Okay." That evening, Lisa was bustling around our bedroom, packing her bags with energy I hadn't seen in months. Her face practically glowed with excitement, a stark contrast to the tension that had weighed on our home. I stood by the door, arms crossed, watching her. She looked up, beaming. "Oh, thank you, Matt. You have no idea how happy I am. I'll make it up to you when I'm back." Her words were almost laughable, but I kept my expression blank. I smiled faintly and replied, "Oh, don't worry about that. I'll make sure I'm happy." With that, I turned and walked out, my footsteps steady, but my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. Everything was set, every detail accounted for. It was time to execute the plan. I've always prided myself on being a man of logic, someone who keeps emotions in check and focuses on rational solutions. But today, I felt an unfamiliar ache, a sense of loss gnawing at the edges of my resolve. It wasn't just Lisa I had lost. It was something deeper, something harder to define. But then again, she had already destroyed our marriage long before this moment. All my efforts to help her daughter, every bit of time, energy, and money I had poured into making life easier for them, wasted. The new car I bought for Jessica, the hefty college fund I worked overtime to build, it all amounted to nothing. And for what? For her daughter to smugly tell me that I don't own her mother? Well, tough luck. When has life ever promised to be fair? Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. That fundamental truth of the universe still holds, and now, I intend to prove it with my reaction. That evening, Lisa left with her daughter to be with her ex-husband, David, and I made sure to wave them goodbye one last time. They deserved to see that farewell. Once they were out of sight, I walked into the kitchen and grabbed a bottle of Jack Daniels from the cabinet. I poured myself a large glass, added a few cubes of ice, and took a small sip, letting the warmth of the alcohol settle in. It was the only thing that felt familiar at that moment. Then I picked up my phone and made the call. "It's all done," I said, my voice steady. "Let's start the show." The next morning, I woke up with a clear plan. The first thing to go was the car I had bought for Lisa's daughter. It was a Honda, a car she had loved when she first saw it. Even though she had grumbled about the color, she had the freedom to choose her next car now. Hopefully one David could buy for her. Next, I turned my attention to Lisa's car, the one she adored. She had always flaunted it, acting like it was the best thing I had ever done for her. Well, too bad. She never once appreciated the man who worked tirelessly to give her what she wanted. Now, for the next 30 days, David could handle her transportation. I wouldn't be the one to provide that comfort anymore. As for the house, it was too big for them. I had heard them complain enough about it over the years. They had always talked about how they wanted something smaller, cozier, like the house David had. Well, now they were living in one. Might as well make it permanent. It's not like they'd be coming back to this one anytime soon. By the end of the day, I had what I needed, $2 million in my hands, or more accurately, in my offshore account. No more sacrifices. Now, I could finally do what I wanted without anything or anyone holding me back. 3 days passed, and the silence was almost peaceful. But then the phone rang again. It was Lisa. Her voice was shaky, like she was trying to keep her composure. But the panic was evident. I called the house, but no one answered. "Where are you?" I couldn't help but smile, the irony not lost on me. I picked up my drink, took a slow sip, and without missing a beat, replied, "Taking care of my desires." And with that, I ended the call before she could respond. That evening, my phone buzzed nonstop. First Lisa, then Jessica. Both called repeatedly, their messages pouring in. It was clear they were furious and likely frantic. I had a good guess why. By now, they must have received the bank notifications. The joint account? Empty. The college fund? Gone. I could almost hear the shock in their voices. They had no idea what had hit them. But honestly, how was I supposed to take care of my desires when all my money was tied up in those accounts? Still, I didn't pick up immediately. The calls kept coming, but I let them stew for a while, let them process the mess I'd left behind. It took another 3 days, 3 long days of relentless ringing, before I finally decided to answer the phone. "Hey, Lisa, how are you?" I said, my voice calm, almost casual. "Sorry, I was busy getting my desires catered to, so I couldn't answer your calls." She didn't hold back. The insults, the accusations, the guilt trips, all came pouring out in a relentless stream. Every bit of verbal garbage she could throw at me, and even some things that left me shaking my head in disbelief. But honestly, she had every right to be angry. I wasn't expecting sympathy. I just sat there, listening, waiting for her to finish. And once she finally fell silent, I knew it was time. I guess it's not the time to talk. Bye. I hung up before she could get another word in. That went on for 5 days. 5 straight days of her screaming and me hanging up, each call more frantic than the last. It was almost predictable at this point. But on the 6th day, when I picked up, there was a noticeable shift. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't spewing her anger at me. Instead, there was a calmness in her voice. "Why did you take away all the money?" she asked. I leaned back, taking my time with the answer. "Well, living in a 5-star hotel in Jamaica costs a lot. How do I pay for it unless I empty your daughter's college fund that I paid for?" "What? That was my dream vacation. How could you do this to me?" She was livid. "Well, my desire was for you to remain faithful to me. That didn't work out so well, so I got the next best thing, a vacation in Jamaica with a young blonde Russian woman to keep me company." Brenda's voice cracked with fury as she screamed, "You will not get away with this. Once I am back, I will make you pay." I could feel her rage through the phone, like it was burning right through the line. Honestly, it didn't faze me. I had expected it. She was always like this, overreacting to everything. The same old drama. But it wasn't the kind of emotion I wanted to deal with right now. I wasn't in the mood for a fight. Not with her. Not with anyone. I took a deep breath, my fingers tightening around the phone. "I guess you're angry," I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. Not the kind of emotion I want to deal with right now. Before she could say anything more, I pressed the end call button. There was no need for any more of her threats today. A month had nearly passed, and now it was time to move on to the next phase of my plan. I boarded the plane with a clear destination in mind, and it wasn't just another getaway. No, this was something bigger. Thailand. Back when I was working as a software analyst, I had frequently been offered a partnership at a firm in Bangkok. At the time, I had brushed it off, not feeling the need for anything more. But now, with nothing really tying me down back home, nothing left that mattered, I figured, why not? So I had accepted their offer, and here I was on my way. The plane ride was long, but it gave me time to think, to reflect on everything that had led me here. When the wheels finally touched down, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of relief. I had made my choice. I had moved on. I landed in Bangkok. I switched on my phone and immediately called my lawyer. She'll be back today. Please give her my message. Later that evening, Brenda and Jessica returned home, what they used to call home. I couldn't help but imagine the look on their faces when they saw what awaited them. At the door, a man was already standing, waiting. He approached them with professionalism. "Hello, are you Mrs. Brenda Wilson?" he asked. She nodded, her face a mixture of confusion and dread. "You've been served." The man handed her a manila envelope, stood back a few feet, and snapped the picture before walking away without another word. The image, that moment captured in a brief flash, was still the best thing I'd seen in a while. There she was, Brenda, holding that envelope, her face crumpling as tears started to fall. And Jessica, she stood beside her, looking utterly shocked, her eyes scanning the driveway. "Dude, where's my car?" she asked, her voice quivering. As I predicted, the phone call started. I let them ring through, waiting until I was in the comfort of my hotel room before I dialed her number. I didn't even need to say anything. She picked up almost immediately, and before I could get a word in, she exploded. "You are not an honorable man. You're jealous of David. You couldn't handle your ego." Her voice was shrill, a steady stream of insults, the same ones every cheating wife throws when caught. I didn't interrupt her. I didn't even flinch. I just listened. This time, I wasn't hanging up. I wasn't running from it. I waited for my turn. Did you open the envelope? I asked, my voice steady. There was a brief silence on the other end, followed by the sound of rustling paper. Inside were the images of her and David in bed with timestamps and locations, even the ones where she was tied up. You knew all this time, she whispered, her voice faltering for the first time. Oh, yes, I said calmly. I did. I could almost hear her processing it, the weight of the truth sinking in. Since you made your bed, I continued, I made sure you'd sleep in it. You didn't try to stop me, she said. Oh, no. Why would I? Once you decided to cheat, you ended our marriage. Besides, why would I choose between a cheating wife and a vacation in Jamaica? The next part was almost too easy. The divorce has been filed under adultery, and I've left some money in the joint account. Hopefully, that will be enough for you to reach David's house. I could feel the tension on the other end, the raw anger, but I didn't care. The ball was no longer in her court. Her voice screeched through the phone, raw and desperate. You didn't leave any money for your daughter. How will she go to college? I didn't hesitate. She won't. I shot back. Not on my money. She's not my daughter. Her actions have proved that time and again. She can go to college on her father's money. There was a long pause before I heard the phone being snatched away. Jessica's voice came through next, and once again, I was bombarded with the same barrage of screams and insults. I knew what this was. I knew it would be the last conversation, the last time I'd hear from either of them. So I endured it. Then, in a voice that wavered between rage and disbelief, Jessica said, You sold my car. No, I sold my car. I shot back, not even flinching. You took away my college fund, she cried, desperation clear in her voice. I couldn't hold back the bitterness anymore. No, I replied coldly. I made sure I had money to fund my desire for a Jamaican vacation. Besides, it was my money and I took it back. And then, without missing a beat, I added, As you said, your mother can drink from any watering hole. So can I. She screamed again, her voice shaking with anger and frustration. What will I tell my friends? My car is gone. I didn't even flinch. Tell them your loser stepfather sold it to fund his Jamaican vacation. And now, you're going back to live with your biological father. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end before Lisa snatched the phone back, her voice dripping with accusation. You stole our money. I'll call the cops. Please go ahead, I said, my tone completely calm. You signed that legal document that waived my financial responsibility toward you. I spent the money within the 30 days, and now I'm broke. She shot back immediately, disbelief heavy in her words. You want me to believe that? I smiled. I never asked you to believe me, but in court, I will prove that. I ended the call with a calm final note. For any further communication, please call my lawyer. His number is in the envelope. Have a good day, Lisa. A few days later, I knew that Lisa would try to fight the divorce, but I was confident in my lawyer's ability to handle it. Lisa claimed that I knew about her staying with her ex-husband and approved it. My lawyer then presented the images with timestamps and location, proving that she had been with David before the agreed 30-day period. Your Honor, my lawyer stated, the fact that Mrs. Turner was already sleeping with Mr. Parker before this 30-day period constitutes cheating. Mr. Turner was not aware of her infidelity, so the claim that my client knew beforehand and approved her relationship with her ex-husband is false. She lied to her husband and broke his trust. Additionally, my lawyer quickly proved that I had spent every last cent of my money on vacations in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. Receipts, invoices, everything. It was all legitimate. Furthermore, Mrs. Turner had signed away any financial responsibilities during the 30-day period she spent with her ex-husband. The judge, though, wasn't naive. He knew the situation reeked of manipulation and deceit, but there was little he could do. The paperwork had been meticulously filed, and the legal process had been followed. His hands were tied, bound by the formalities of the law, even if he could see through the thinly veiled charade. He ordered that whatever assets remained be properly settled. That's when Lisa's lawyer, clearly desperate, tried to bring up child support. But my lawyer wasn't about to let that slide. With firm tone, he immediately objected, pointing out the obvious truth. Jessica wasn't my daughter, not biologically, not legally. I had never legally adopted her, and the judge recognized that this was a key detail, one that made child support a non-issue. But my lawyer wasn't finished. He decided to take things a step further, pushing the absurdity of the situation to its limit. His argument? That I had renounced all worldly responsibilities, having fully embraced the life of a Buddhist monk. No job, no assets, no financial obligations. It was a bold move, borderline ridiculous, but to our surprise, it worked. The judge, who had maintained a stiff, unreadable expression throughout most of the proceedings, suddenly wavered. For the first time, his lips twitched as if suppressing a smirk. Then he glanced at Brenda, amusement flickering in his eyes. "Tough luck, lady," he said, barely able to keep a straight face. His words carried a finality that echoed through the courtroom. "There's nothing more I can do for you." And just like that, the divorce was granted. The only thing Brenda walked away with was the money in the joint account. A month later, I found out that Brenda and Karen had moved in with Marcus. I'm sure in their minds, they had envisioned some version of a fresh start, a new chapter filled with happiness and stability. But reality had other plans. Instead of the peaceful life Brenda had likely hoped for, she found herself right back where she started, trapped in the same toxic, abusive cycle she had once tried to escape. Marcus, the same violent drunk he had always been, resumed his old habits. He beat her just like before, like he had when they were married. And Karen? She was just a silent spectator, powerless to change a thing. Brenda couldn't leave. She had nowhere to go, no safety net, no backup plan. She was stuck, caught in the very nightmare I had once shared with her. Karen now walks to school or takes the bus. No more luxury, no more easy rides. The comfortable life they had taken for granted was gone. As for Marcus, I never sought revenge in any violent way. My approach was far simpler. I gave him exactly what he wanted. Now, the responsibility of feeding and caring for his new family was his burden to bear. He got what he had so desperately fought for, and now he had to deal with it. Because sometimes the worst punishment isn't something done to you. It's getting exactly what you asked for, and realizing too late that it came at a cost. Thanks for being with me. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. See you in the next story.